She didn't just walk through that curtain, she skipped. And the moment that music hit, that playful, haunting little melody that hasn't been heard on a WWE stage in over a decade, something cracked open in the atmosphere inside TD Garden. Grown men covered their mouths. Women gripped each other's arms. Children who had never seen this woman wrestle a single match screamed at the top of their lungs like they'd been waiting for her their whole lives. And maybe, in a way, they had, because AJ Lee doesn't just represent a chapter in professional wrestling history. She represents a feeling. A moment in time when women's wrestling stopped being a bathroom break and started being must-see television. When a girl from Union City, New Jersey, with fire in her eyes and a chip the size of Allegiant Stadium on her shoulder, walked into the most cynical industry in entertainment and made everyone believe. And on March 23, 2026, inside a sold-out TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, on a night that was already electric from the opening bell, AJ Lee did something nobody expected. She didn't just show up. She issued a challenge. She put her Women's Intercontinental Championship on the line. She looked straight down the barrel at Becky Lynch and said, "Wrestlemania. This is the story of how it happened. And why it matters more than almost anything else on the Wrestlemania 42 card. To understand tonight, you have to understand the road that led here. Because this rivalry didn't start on March 23rd. It didn't even start at Elimination Chamber. This feud has roots that stretch back to the summer of 2025. When the wrestling world was turned on its head by a SmackDown that nobody saw coming. It was September 5, 2025. CM Punk was already deep in his war with Seth Rollins, a feud built on betrayal, pride, and the kind of personal animosity that makes great professional wrestling. Becky Lynch had aligned herself with Rollins, and together they had been making Punk's life miserable. The expectation was that this night on SmackDown would be more of the same. More mind games. More cheap shots. More Becky standing ringside with that smug grin while Rollins did the dirty work. Nobody expected the music. That bouncy, deceptively cheerful theme hit the speakers, and the crowd didn't react, they erupted. Because standing on the stage, after 10 years away from professional wrestling, after a decade of silence, was April Jeanette Mendez. AJ Lee. In the flesh. Skipping down that ramp like she hadn't missed a single day. She hadn't come back to dip her toe in the water. She'd come back to dive headfirst into the deep end. And the deep end had a name: Becky Lynch. At WrestlePalooza in September 2025, AJ Lee and CM Punk squared off against Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins in a mixed tag team match. The wrestling world collectively held its breath. This was the first time AJ had competed in over a decade. Would the ring rust show? Would 10 years away from the grind have dulled that edge? The answer came in the form of one move. One moment. The Black Widow. AJ Lee locked it in, cranked back on Becky Lynch's arm, and the man tapped. Just like that. In her first match back, AJ Lee made one of the most decorated women's champions in WWE history submit. The crowd lost its mind. But it wasn't over. Not even close. At Survivor Series War Games 2025, the rivalry escalated inside the most brutal structure in sports entertainment. AJ Lee's team against Becky Lynch's team. Two factions, one cage, no escape. It was chaos and carnage from start to finish, and when the dust settled, it was AJ Lee who secured the victory once again, making Becky Lynch tap out to the Black Widow. 2 matches. 2 submissions. A pattern was forming. Then came Elimination Chamber 2026. Chicago, Illinois. AJ Lee's city. The United Center was absolutely volcanic. And for the first time, it was just the two of them. No teams, no partners, no safety net. Just AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch, one-on-one, for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. What unfolded was a masterclass. Becky Lynch controlled the early portion of the match with the calculated precision that has made her one of the greatest of all time. She targeted AJ's arm, working submission counters into her own offense, trying to neutralize the very weapon AJ had used to beat her twice before. The crowd in Chicago was deafening throughout, chanting for Lee with the kind of religious fervor usually reserved for hometown legends. The referee went down at a pivotal moment and the entire rhythm of the match shifted. When the chaos cleared, AJ Lee moved with the instincts of someone who had never truly left this world. She locked in the Black Widow for the second time in the match. Becky Lynch fought it. She clawed, she twisted, she reached, but there was nowhere to go. The tap came, and Chicago exploded. AJ Lee, Women's Intercontinental Champion. For the first time in over 11 years. The image of her holding that title in the air in her hometown, tears streaming down her face, the crowd shaking the United Center to its foundation, was one of the most powerful moments in recent WWE memory. It was the kind of thing that reminds you why you fell in love with professional wrestling in the first place. But Becky Lynch was not done. On March 16, 2026, AJ Lee successfully defended the Women's Intercontinental Championship against Bayley in a hard-fought Raw match that showcased exactly why Lee belongs at the top of this division. It was a great match between two friends. Lee and Bayley have history, genuine respect, and the emotion of it was real. AJ won clean, and the crowd cheered, and for a few beautiful seconds, everything felt right in the world. Then Becky Lynch hit the ring. What followed was a brutal, unprovoked post-match attack. Lynch laid waste to the champion with a ferocity that bordered on unhinged. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't chess. This was rage, pure, when distilled, personal rage. Becky Lynch looked down at AJ Lee on that mat, and the message was unmistakable: "I'm not done with you." The following week, Lynch made it official. She wanted her rematch. She wanted the title. And she wanted it at WrestleMania. Now we get to Boston. March 23, 2026. TD Garden. Becky Lynch came out first. And she did not come out looking for friends. She came out with the kind of energy that clears a room, sharp, controlled fury that she wrapped in a promo so cutting it felt less like a speech and more like an interrogation. She addressed the crowd directly, and she wasn't apologizing for anything. She asked how anyone could boo her while cheering for someone who had abandoned them. She said she took 10 months off to be with her family. 10 months, not 10 years. She talked about building the Women's Intercontinental Championship into the most prestigious women's title in wrestling while others were living normal lives. She said she was robbed at Elimination Chamber. That the referee went down, that chaos reigned, that AJ Lee got lucky. And then she got personal. She said that when she came home after losing at Elimination Chamber after one of the hardest nights of her professional career, she found her daughter in the living room, singing AJ Lee's entrance theme, skipping around the house, flicking her hair. Her own daughter. Idolizing the woman who just took her mother's title. The crowd laughed. Becky did not. She called AJ Lee Jersey scum. She said her daughter didn't understand yet that her mother was the greatest of all time, a fact backed by Sports Illustrated and Bleacher Report, and she's happy to show you the receipts. She dismissed AJ Lee's entire championship reign as a product of the Divas era, a chapter that Becky Lynch personally dragged to its grave and buried when she became the man. It was brilliant heel work. The kind of promo that blurs the line between character and person, because the best of the best always find that line and dance on it. And the crowd in Boston was absolutely boiling. Then AJ Lee's music hit. She came sprinting to that ring. Not skipping, not playing, sprinting, because Becky had gone too far, and AJ Lee has never been the type to let anything slide. But Becky read the play perfectly. She slipped out through the crowd before Lee could get her hands on her, leaving AJ standing in the ring, chest heaving, eyes blazing. AJ grabbed a microphone. She climbed onto the commentary table, and from up there, looking out at the full arena, she delivered her answer. She told Becky that she fights dirty. That everything Becky had said was a carefully constructed distraction from one inconvenient truth, that at every turn, in every match they have had, AJ Lee has walked Becky Lynch. She's made her tap 3 times. And if Becky wanted to collect her 4th receipt, AJ said she would hand it to her personally right in the middle of the grandest stage of them all. And then the champion looked out at the crowd, and she said it: "I will give you what you want." AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. The place came apart. Becky Lynch, still in the crowd, smiled. Not a warm smile. The kind of smile that tells you a predator has exactly what they wanted. She accepted immediately, and then she twisted the knife. She reminded AJ Lee of what happened the last time she competed at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 31, 2015. The night after that show, AJ Lee announced her retirement. She hung up her boots and walked away from WWE. Becky Lynch looked her dead in the eye and said, "That's going to happen again. Except this time, it won't be on your terms. This time, I will take that title and end your career so definitively that you will never have to be seen or heard from again." AJ Lee held the championship high and didn't blink. WrestleMania 42. April 18, 2026. Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's talk about what this match actually means, because I think it deserves more than just a recap. This is not a nostalgia act. This is not two legends cashing in on memories. This is a legitimate, fully loaded main roster championship match between two of the most complete performers in the history of the women's division. On one side, you have Becky Lynch, a woman who needs no introduction, but deserves one anyway. She is the architect of the women's wrestling revolution at the main event level. She was the first woman to hold both the Raw and SmackDown women's championships simultaneously. She main event WrestleMania 35. She carried that industry on her back for years and made the Women's Intercontinental Championship a title worth fighting over. Her promo work is elite. Her ring work is elite. Her ability to connect with an audience even as a heel, even when she's saying things that make your blood boil, is elite. And on the other side, you have AJ Lee, a woman who fundamentally changed what was possible for women in WWE. In an era when women were given 7 minutes on a 3-hour show, she went out there and made people pay attention. She was a 3-time Divas champion. She was the longest reigning Divas champion in history. She made the Black Widow a finishing submission in an era when women rarely won with submissions. She was the blueprint. And now, at 39 years old, after a decade away, she is proving that blueprints don't expire. This match also carries a historic footnote that has largely flown under the radar. It will be the first time the Women's Intercontinental Championship has ever been defended at Wrestlemania, the grandest stage in the world. That title is getting its moment, and it's getting it because two of the best in the business are the ones carrying it. The stylistic matchup is absolutely compelling. Becky Lynch is a physical, aggressive, technically sound striker who controls the pace of a match and wears her opponents down. She is calculated, patient, and dangerous from any position. AJ Lee is an unpredictable, high-emotion, submission-based technician who thrives in chaos. When Lynch controlled the early pace at Elimination Chamber, it looked like the blueprint for a victory. Lee survived by finding the chaos by waiting for the moment the structure of the match broke down, and then capitalizing instantly. Can Becky Lynch prevent that from happening on the biggest stage of the year? Can she avoid the Black Widow at WrestleMania the way she couldn't avoid it at WrestlePalooza, at War Games, or at Elimination Chamber? 4 matches, 4 opportunities, 3 submissions. The pressure on Becky Lynch to solve the AJ Lee puzzle at WrestleMania is enormous. And for AJ Lee the question is different. She has beaten Becky every time they've met. She has the submission advantage, the crowd advantage, the championship advantage. But can she handle the weight of WrestleMania? Can she deliver on the grandest stage after more than a decade away? The last time she stood in a WrestleMania ring, she left the company the next day. The ghost of that moment is the weapon Becky Lynch is sharpening right now. Becky Lynch referenced it because she knows. The psychological warfare of this feud has been just as captivating as the in-ring action. Becky is trying to plant a seed of doubt. She's trying to make AJ Lee think about 2015, about what it felt like to stand in that spotlight and then walk away. About whether this moment is too big, too heavy, too much. But if you watched AJ Lee on that commentary table in Boston, if you saw the look in her eyes, heard the steel in her voice, felt the electricity she generated with about 45 seconds of pure presence, you understand that Becky Lynch has not manufactured doubt. She has manufactured fire. Las Vegas is going to burn. This is what WrestleMania is supposed to feel like. Real stakes, real history, real emotion. 2 competitors who genuinely cannot stand each other but respect each other enough to bring out the absolute best version of their craft. The kind of match you will remember the way you remember the first time you stayed up past midnight watching wrestling and thought, "This is real to me." AJ Lee accepted. Becky Lynch said it's a trap. The Women's Intercontinental Championship will be on the line at Allegiant Stadium. And on April 18th, in front of what will likely be the loudest crowd of either woman's career, one of them will walk out of Las Vegas as champion and one of them will have to live with what comes next. If this story has you as locked in as it has us, do me a favor right now, hit the like button, because Wrestling Impact put in the work to bring you every angle of this build in full cinematic detail, and we are just getting started on our WrestleMania 42 coverage. Subscribe if you haven't, because the nights between now and Las Vegas are going to be ones you don't want to miss a second of. And drop a comment below. I want to know what you think happens in that ring. Does AJ Lee tap Becky out for the 4th time? Or does the man finally figure out the answer to the Black Widow and walk out of Vegas with the gold? WrestleMania 42. AJ Lee vs. Becky Lynch. The Intercontinental Championship. History is being made. And Wrestling Impact will be here every single step of the way.